Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas Podcast, where attitude is everything. Another episode of Unscripted. And Unscripted has been tough because pushing the record button or getting set to be able to go on, probably one of the toughest things that you'll ever do. My friend Sean Finnegan said to me that it's the start that stops us. A lot of times we get bogged down with all the details, and so that's been the challenge in just starting. And just giving yourself permission, because you think, like, does my voice matter? Does what I'm saying matters? And the reason why I'm doing these unscripted, and for the next 31 days, we're going to be going through Proverbs. It's something that I do in the morning. And like I said, there's days where I miss. But what my wife said to me is that it's not going to be the profound that is the thing that catches. It's going to be the simple things. It's going to be the things that you already do. And so this was a thing that I was at the beach this morning, got to spend some time in the Word, got to spend some time with the Lord. And this is what I've been doing for the last, 3-4 years, very disciplined, but throughout my life, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day brings incredible wisdom. And whether it doesn't matter your belief system, your religion, anything like that, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is wisdom and bringing the wisdom and the vibe together. So I'm excited for this episode. I hope you enjoy it. I know that I will. So have a wonderful time. Here we go. Let's say hello to our sponsors.
Cause we believing it's for certain. We put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting right before your eyes. So it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Welcome back to the show. And I've got my glasses on today because my eyes, the last couple of years, I've had to use them as readers, so I'm going to be using them today. We're on January 7th, so we're going to be going through Proverbs 7. We've got 6 points for you today. And we're going to hit them quick, but I want to respect your guys' time. And I want to be able to look at this, so we're going to jump right in. From verse 1 through 5, this was the verbs. This was a big thing, and it's not just about the reading of something, but actually looking and having that thing read you. What I found with Proverbs, when you read it, the corresponding proverb, corresponding day, there's 31 days in a month, there's 31 proverbs. Most of the time, there's 31 days in a month, every other month. But if you keep this going, what happens is you start to read it first, and then it starts to read you. And what I found was when I asked God this in 1997, he asked me if you needed reading glasses, which at the time I didn't need them. But he said, if you needed reading glasses and you went to read, could you make out the words? And I said, well, that's an easy answer. The answer is no. And he said, well, then every time that you go in the Word, you need to put on your glasses that will help you to be able to see, which is the Holy Spirit. So today we're going to be able to put on the Holy Spirit and make sure I've got my glasses that actually work. But that's what I would invite you to do. And what I would say to you too is just grab a Bible wherever you're at and grab Proverbs. There's different versions of it. But here we go. In Proverbs 7, verse 1 through 5, it talks about the verbs. And this was a thing that was revealed to me because most of the time we overlook the verbs, the action words in this. So let me run through them. The verbs from 1 through 5 are keep, store up, guard, bind, write, and then say. And so I'll read it in context. My son, keep my words and store up my commands within you. Keep my commands and you will live. Guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Say to insight, you are my relative. So when we look at that, and then it says they will keep you from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words. So when we look at that, think of it like keep, like to be able to keep something, you have to discover it in the first place, so you have to be looking for it. So looking for that, coming to Proverbs, the corresponding proverb, corresponding day, give you crazy wisdom, and it not, again, be about a religious sense, but like think of this, in business. If you seek out the amazing things in your business, and then you keep them, and then you store them up, and then you guard them, you bind them, and then you write them, and then you say them, imagine how much over and over it's going to happen. Number 2, and this, as far as point-wise, is from verse 6 to verse 9, which is amazing. So in verse 6 to 9, it talks about a dimmer switch. And what I want to tell you in business and relationships and, any of those things, what I find is that it never comes, darkness never comes on you in one, like, right away. They talk about the lobster in the boiling pot of water. If you just put it in there and you boil the water slow, the lobster or the crab just stays in there and it'll pass away. It's the same things with humans. And what I found with business, we always talked about this in our company, that was a dimmer switch. It never came on you. It never overwhelmed you. It was just little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. And then by the time you realized it, wow, I'm in the dark. And so in verse 6 through 9, we looked at this, and I was looking at it this morning, and it talked about, in verse 7, it says, I saw among the simple, and I marked that out. I noticed that among the young men, youth who had no sense, he was going down the street near her corner, walking, right, along the direction of her house in the twilight at the day, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. So think about that. It was the dimmer switch. Here it was, a simple guy. He was a youth. He had no sense. He started walking, just walking. He was walking in the twilight faded, and he was in the dark. So watch out for the dimmer switch. What is that dimmer switch in your life? What are the little things that are happening in your life right now that you're saying, oh my gosh, like this little thing, I'm allowing this thing to pass? And it was a age-old word called Kaizen, and Kaizen means never walk past poor quality. And that's what Dr. Edwards Deming talked about in the Deming process. If you read his book, it's absolutely phenomenal. Change relationships, change business, all of those things. But let's look into Proverbs. And what I love about it is this is ancient wisdom. This is tried and true wisdom that once we start reading it for long enough, it starts reading us. Point number 3 is the seduction of the world will never fulfill God-given purpose. And so this is verse 10 through 15. So 10 through 15, when we look at it, we talked about yesterday, and if you didn't get a chance to be able to watch the video, go back and watch Unscripted 3:19. It was on Proverbs 6, and it talked about the difference between adultery, not adultery meaning that, hey, I'm going to cheat on my wife, or I'm going to cheat on my spouse, or cheat on my husband. Adultery is anything that you put ahead of God's purpose and God in your life. And every one of us has a unique purpose. I don't care what God you serve. I'm just saying that you were built and created for a purpose. You didn't just happen. It wasn't just combustible, like bang, it happened. No. You were built for a purpose, every single one of you. And I want you to know that when you start living in that, it's massive. So in verse 10 through 15, it says a woman came out to meet him, and I underlined dressed like a prostitute with crafty intent. Okay, so again, take the woman out of it and take the circumstance and put it in. What thing is starting to come in and it's dressed and it's shiny and it may be a business deal or maybe a friendship that it starts out as, but what is that thing that's got shiny on the outside attracting you? And my dad used to call it chasing rabbits, and chasing rabbits was just going after the newest, hottest thing all the time, as opposed to sticking in and saying, what is my purpose right now? What was I built to do? And I can lock into that. The other thing too is what I noticed in Proverbs 7 is the setup, right? So let's go back to the first point. It was the verbs: keep, store up, guard, bind, write, and say. And when we think about that, what God was saying in this proverb, or Solomon was talking about when he wrote it, was he was saying that here's these things. There's going to be these challenges that come in life, and what I want you to do is I want you to keep, Store up, guard, bind, write, and say wisdom all the time. And where does wisdom come from? Wisdom comes from the fear of God. We talked about that yesterday. And so when we look at that, then he brings in all the circumstance. So let's go on to point number 3, which is the seduction of the world will never fulfill a God-given purpose. And we've all been seduced by money, by situations, circumstances, all those things. So point number 4 is deception will always sound sweet. And this is verse 16 through 20. And so, deception is always going to sound sweet. Deception is not going to be like, hey, you should do the wrong thing. It's going to be awful. It's going to be the worst thing in the world. And a lot of times, guys, again, the dimmer switch, it's not about us, not having fun. I want to have fun in life. I watched my son last night, and him and his buddy, they built a fort in the front room. My daughter went to the mall yesterday, and she had so much fun. I just asked her, are you having fun? It's not about not having fun, but it's about thinking back to keep, store up, guard, bind, write, and say these amazing things that can be in your life. Okay, so point number 5, or point number 4 is the deception is sweet. So deception is sweet is always going to come wrapped in a wrapper that's shiny and exciting and all that stuff. And then number 5, the question that I saw in here was, what's the enticement? What's the enticement that you're dealing with or that I'm dealing with right now? Is it comparison? Is it watching social media? Is it, when on social media and comparing yourself to somebody else's? What is the seduction and the enticement right now? What is that? And if we identify it, and then we go back to, if I keep wisdom, I store it up, I guard it, I bind it, I write it, and I say it, I constantly am, then I can war against that enticement and just be like, no, I'm good. And that's what discretion is. And point number 6, as we finish up, is just listen and pay attention. Don't turn your heart astray. And so with this one, right at the end, it's incredible because he goes back to verbs. So we start off with verbs: keep, store up, guard, bind, write, and say, right? So if we do that, then the circumstances that are in the middle of the proverb that talks about the seduction, it talks about adultery, but when it talks about adultery, think about it as anything outside of your committed purpose, what you were committed to do and what your purpose is. And then at the end, what it talks about, it gives more verbs. It says, now then, sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. So think of those verbs: listen, pay attention, don't let your heart turn, and then stray. And so it's bookended with verbs and things that we can do actionably every single day and every single moment to be able to keep that wisdom in your life. And when we take wisdom, think of this: when we fear God, meaning that we respect him, knowing that where all things come from is him. What happens is when we respect him, and this is where I got caught up, and this is where I'll finish. This is where I got caught up, is people say the fear of God, and I was like, I don't want to be scared of him. No. Fear in that context meant respect. And so when we respect God, he brings wisdom. That wisdom will bring understanding, or the wisdom will bring knowledge. The knowledge will bring understanding. The understanding will bring insight. The insight will bring discretion. The discretion will bring discipline. The discipline will bring strength. And the strength will lead us back to the respect of God in the first place. And so it's amazing with the bookending part of it. It's just basically saying, store up the good things. There's going to be enticements. There's going to be circumstances. There's going to be things that want to draw you away from what it is that you're doing. But stick the course. And this morning when I went out to the water, the tide was crazy. It was super high. And I was thinking, man, I don't want to go out there. And then God just said, the tide will draw back if you are patient. So the circumstances in your life could be crazy and they could be overwhelming. But if you're patient enough, and watch this, if you keep his wisdom, you store it up, you guard it, you bind it, you write it, and you say it over and over and over again, what'll happen is the tide will draw back at its given time. But that given time will be in his will, his plan, and his timing. So be patient today. Be encouraged. I appreciate you. I want to thank you so much for being a part of another Unscripted. Proverbs 7. Read it yourself. Let it read you. This is my translation of it, but I hope you enjoyed yourself. I am very, very, very honored that every single one of you guys tunes in, and I love you all. Mr. Wayne Freeman, thank you for rocking with me. Gino, you know who you are. Every single person that's out there rocking with the podcast, I absolutely appreciate you. Love you so much. Peace, love, and soul. I'm officially off the hot seat.